a delightful human and comes with such a depth of knowledge, as well as deep, deep passion and commitment to supporting the brain injury community. So I am very, very delighted to be able to turn it over to her in a few moments. But we'll let folks trickle in for the next maybe minute before officially starting. But welcome. I know I see many familiar faces as well as many new faces. So if you are wherever you are in that continuum, just very grateful to have you part of Love Your Brain and also, yeah, part of our conversation today. So, as a reminder, today's workshop is called Sleep Well, Heal Well, Navigating Rest After Brain Injury, which we know can be a very frustrating and elusive process. So, very excited to have conversation around some of what Dr. Catherine Wiseman Hakes will be able to help us all learn um, how to support ourselves and also others in this process. And housekeeping wise, we'll just let everybody know that myself and my wonderful colleague Irene will be supporting with any tech needs. So if anyone has questions, feel free to chat us. We have a little asterisk by our name if you want to find us on the participant list. And we will keep folks muted until we'll have some conversation and Q&A at the end, but just to limit the kind of potential distraction of crosstalk. And if you are joining us for the first time, Love Your Brain is a national nonprofit based in the US that is motivated to supporting the brain injury community to improve their mental, physical, and social well-being through programs, research, trainings, and outreach. And we offer these Learning Lab workshops as an opportunity to kind of go a bit deeper with experts who have a wealth of knowledge as well as clinical practice or expertise in areas that are designed to support the healing process after brain injury, knowing it is ongoing and nonlinear. So, without further ado, we'll introduce Dr. Wiseman Hakes, who I,
Catherine.
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 Um,
I never go by doctor. I'm just Catherine.
Okay. Well, officially, yes, Dr. Catherine, but unofficially, as you can see, she is incredibly humble and wonderful. So she is a clinician scientist and educator with over 25 years of experience in sleep language pathology, sleep and clinical neuroscience, with a focus on marginalized and underserved communities in Canada. And she's also a founder and director of a really moving nonprofit called the Compassionate Justice Fund, which is done in partnership with the Ontario Brain Injury Association. And if that we have space to hear a little bit about that, would love to hear about that. But really want to turn it over to you, Catherine, and just appreciate you so much for your time and willingness to share with the Love Your Brain community about this very important topic.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Kyla and I are kindred spirits. And I just discovered that Irene is clearly a kindred spirit as well. So it's really a pleasure to be here with you today, this evening. And it's also a real privilege and pleasure to see all of these beautiful faces and come together so that together we can have a conversation and do some brainstorming around how we collectively can improve our sleep and well-being. So you'll notice in the background that I have a picture of snow, and that is because I am based in Toronto in Canada, and we are in the midst of a beautiful snowstorm right now. I'm one of these people that I actually love snow, and I really embrace the snow and I embrace the winter because it's a signal to me, as I think it is to all of us. Oh, hello, I see a Canadian flag there. Um, it's a signal to all of us that it gives us permission to slow down and to maybe kind of go into a hibernating or rest mode. And we know that unfortunately in our society, most of the time we don't give ourselves permission to do that. But I hope you'll maybe look around outside wherever you are. And if you happen to be in the darkness and if you happen to be in the snow, that you will use that sort of sense of darkness and coziness to bring you into a sense of peace and calm to begin the evening. So I'm going to share my slides now. First, I have to find them. There we go. Okay, are they, do you see them? Isn't this funny? Do you see this? Do you see the slides?
Not
No,
yet.
Okay. We had a little strange thing at the beginning, but let me try again. We will get them up there. And
Usually you have to open something first and then click share and you can click what you want to share.
thank you. I will try that again. Thank you so much. Ah, there we go. Share. And let me put it on
There
slideshow.
we go. Now we see.
Thank you. Ah, isn't this funny? This happened last time as well, but let me try from there we go. How does that look?
perfect.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So, again, my name is Catherine, and please, that's how I would be so grateful if you would refer to me, and my pronouns are she, her, and elle. So, I would like to welcome, okay, there we go. I would like to welcome you all into this space. And why exactly are we here today? We're here because so many people following brain injury have a lot of challenges with sleep and wakefulness. We talk about both of those because the two are equally important. We want to be able to sleep at night and rest our bodies and our brains and our spirit so that we can be awake and engaged during the day. So I want to start off by saying and just reassuring everyone that our bodies know how to sleep. Every human being, every animal, every species sleeps, and our bodies know how to sleep. Most of the time, it's our mind that gets in the way. Not all, but most. And we are going to talk about that. Sorry, but before we begin, I'd like to just bring us all together so that we're here in a quiet space. I have the great privilege in Toronto of being a settler on Indigenous territory. And I feel very grateful to live and work and raise my family here. And I would like to share a beautiful Haudenosaunee teaching which guides us to begin all gatherings with an acknowledgement of the words before all else, the Thanksgiving address. We acknowledge the people who are gathered here together. We acknowledge the Earth Mother, the grasses, including our medicines. We acknowledge the hanging fruit, the trees, the waters, the animals, the birds, the thunderers, the sun, Grandmother Moon, the stars, the four messengers, the peacemaker, and Sogwayondiso, the Haudenosaunee creator. This recognizes and affirms our relationships with all of creation and serves to bring our minds together. So let's go over a little bit about what we're going to learn and talk about this evening. I want to begin by sharing some information about sleep because the reality is we never think about sleep until we're not getting it. And that's when we think about it all the time. We're going to talk about sleep and wakefulness after brain injury, what happens, why it changes. And then we're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about what we together can do to promote restful, healing sleep. We'll talk about some strategies for improving sleep quality and deeper rest. And then we'll have some time for questions and discussion. So I always like to begin with a disclosure here, a friendly reminder that I am not a medical doctor, I'm not a naturopathic doctor, and so I cannot prescribe. If you do have questions about dosage for supplements, because I will be talking about some supplements, please consult a naturopathic doctor or even the staff at your local health food store who should have some training, because these are individual for every person. Okay, just for whatever reason, my cursor to move to the next slide is, there it worked. So let's begin by talking about sleep. So this is a quote unquote famous quote by Beatrice the biologist. Sleep makes your brain sparkle. And that actually scientifically is in fact true. Sleep is very important for our brain health as well as for our brain's growth and development across our lives. So why does it matter? So before we talk about sleep and how it changes after brain injury, let's talk about what is normal sleep. So as I said, sleep is very important for all human health and development. And in fact, you'll see, I'm going to show you an interesting slide about why babies sleep so incredibly much and why our sleep changes across the lifespan. So I'm sure that you've discovered that sleep is really important for learning. We learn so much better when we're rested. It's also important for memory, and it's also important for our thinking skills, our cognitive abilities. We've also learned that sleep is very important for recovery, not just from brain injury, but from illness, any type of physical trauma, and repair. So a lot of our recovery and repair in our bodies and in our brains does take place while we're sleeping. It's important, as I mentioned, for growth and development. And in fact, children actually do grow while they're sleeping. That's when our bodies release growth hormone, which is also very important from a recovery perspective. Sleep is also very important for clearing neurotoxins in the brain. So as we go through our days, and our bodies and our brains actually build up toxins that are cleared while we are sleeping. So that's another very important job of our sleep. What we also know is that sleep is of the brain, for the brain, and by the brain. So the reason we sleep is to promote brain health and neuroplasticity. And without that, without sleep, we don't have that neuroplasticity. So what is normal sleep? I want to emphasize, don't worry, there's no test. You absolutely don't need to remember any of this. I'm just a little bit of a geek and I find this really interesting because we kind of think about sleep that we get into bed, we close our eyes, ideally we fall asleep, our brains shut down and we wake up in the morning. But that's actually not at all. There's so much that's going on. So in the ideal world, and for many of us, we don't have that ideal world, we would like to be falling asleep within 10 to 20 minutes after getting into bed and turning out the lights. Now, while we're asleep, our brains are very active. They're doing all kinds of interesting things. And we actually go through 4 stages of our sleep. And these are just literally called stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And then we have our rapid eye movement sleep or our REM sleep, which some of you may have heard about. And together, the non-REM cycles, meaning number 1, 2, and 3, plus this REM together, lasts for about 90 minutes. So it's not like we fall asleep and then we wake up. We fall asleep, we go through stage 1, 2, 3, REM, and then we start again, stage 1, 2, 3, REM. So in theory, we should go through about 5 cycles per night. And what's interesting is that our deep recovery, restful, slow wave sleep, we have more pressure for that during the first half of the night. So because I'm also a university professor, and so I work with students who also often stay up very late studying and doing their homework, they sometimes ask me, what would be better? And I say, go to bed, because that slow wave sleep is actually going to help with your learning. It's going to help with your memory. It's going to help with your overall well-being. Now, what we also know is that the REM sleep, where we do a lot of our dreaming and our brains are most active, is more prevalent during the last half of the night. And that's why sometimes when we are woken up by our alarm, we might be in the middle of a dream. What's also of note is that most of the night, about 60%, is in stage 2 sleep. And the only reason why that's important is because stage 2 sleep is important for our memory. Okay, each time I do this, a different button moves the slides. So again, this might be a bit of a confusing diagram, and please don't worry about it. It just shows this is us awake at the beginning of the night. This is 0 hour of sleep, and this is 8. So this is the nighttime sleep across this way. And up here on the left side of my screen are the different stages. So you can see here, we're awake, and then our bodies slowly drift off into stage 1 sleep, which is pretty light, but it's our transition stage. And I hope that by the early evening, by the end of this talk, you will all be feeling a little bit close to transitioning. Then our bodies move into stage 2, stage 3, and you'll see here, there's a lot of this stage 3 deep recovery sleep early in the first half of the night. You can see where I'm moving my cursor or my pointer. Okay, so this is the type of sleep that we need to help us with our recovery from brain injury. Early in the night, we have a little period of REM, and you can see as we move across the night, these get more and more. So what you will also notice is, yes, it is normal to have little periods of wakefulness across the night. Maybe we turn over, something might startle us. So nobody ever completely sleeps through the night. Everybody wakes up a tiny bit. What we don't want is to wake up completely so that our bodies are unable to get back to sleep. So again, there's no test, I promise you, but there are some interesting things that go on during each of these periods of sleep. As I mentioned, the stage 1, which hopefully you're starting to be getting into as we move through this evening, is the light transitional sleep. So this is where we might start to feel drowsy, but we're not actually sleeping. We're just feeling drowsy. Our bodies and brains are preparing for sleep. Then in stage 2 sleep, our sleep becomes more stable. And what's interesting here is that in stage 2 sleep, our brains actually release some chemicals and neurotransmitters that block our external senses, making it difficult to be woken. And that's very important. And we also know that sometimes following a brain injury, the stage 2 sleep, the body doesn't necessarily release as many of those neurotransmitters or chemicals, making it easier to wake up. But ideally, we are no longer aware of what's going on in our environment. We're also not aware of the thoughts and feelings going on in our head. Stage 3, I spoke about, is our deep, restful sleep. That's also the type of sleep where if we get sick or we have the flu and our bodies go into this really deep sleep, And that is that deep stage 3 recovery sleep. And as I mentioned, that is where growth hormone is released. So, as I said, children really do grow in the night. And I also have a new puppy at home. She's 6 months old, and she also grows in the night. I wake up in the morning and I go, oh my gosh, you got bigger. So she really is getting bigger. So, as I said and showed you, most of this deep, restful sleep does happen during the first part of the night. And then finally, we have the REM sleep. And this revitalizes our memories, and our brains are very, very active. And in fact, our brain wave patterns during REM sleep look a lot like they do while we're awake. So this is where the intense dreaming is likely to occur. So all of this together is one cycle of sleep that lasts anywhere from 90 to 120 minutes. Now, what's also interesting is that our sleep changes across the lifespan. And again, I like to show this because I think it's cool and I'm kind of a geek. So let me talk a little bit again about the babies. So if any of you are parents, you'll know that babies sleep an awful lot and they have a lot of REM sleep. And the reason they have so much REM sleep is because when babies are very small, their senses haven't developed enough that they're really interacting with the world around them. They know the smell of their caregiver, whether it's their mother or their mother's breast milk, or it's dad or someone who is caring for them and loving them. They may have a very short visual span so that they can see the face of their close other, but that's pretty much all the information that they're taking in from their external world. So the REM sleep actually takes the place of all that stimulation and causes their brains to develop rapidly when they're infants. So I think that is just an absolutely incredible little piece of information. And as you can see, by 6 months up to about 2 years, the amount of REM sleep starts to decrease. We also see that there's a great sleep need when children are young. There's also another peak of sleep need in adolescence, again, because children and adolescents' brains are growing and developing, and their bodies are growing and developing. And then as we get older, our amount of sleep decreases and our amount of wake time increases. Also, the amount of REM sleep continues to decrease. But what we also know, for those of you who may be caring for elderly parents, we know that sometimes elderly people don't sleep as much. And with reductions in sleep in later age, that also coincides with cognitive decline. So we really want to try and protect our sleep across the lifespan as much as we can. And of course, our aim here today is talking about how, in fact, we can do that. So, what makes a good sleep? We all know how we feel when we've had a good sleep, and we know how we feel when we haven't had a good sleep. So, a good sleep is what we call unfragmented. And this means a minimum number of arousals and wakenings. And unfortunately, one of the hallmarks of sleep following brain injury for many people is that they do have many arousals and awakenings, and then they find it difficult to get back to sleep. It's also important to have all of the stages, so stage 1, 2, 3, and REM, and an adequate number of cycles per night. The other is that we want to have ideally a small percentage of that stage 1 light sleep, because it's much easier to wake someone up when they're in stage 1 sleep than it is when they're in a deep recovery sleep or their REM sleep. And of course, we want to have a good percentage of that healing, recovery, and REM sleep. So that's all the geek stuff. And again, there's no test, I promise. It's just, I think it's helpful to have an understanding of what's going on in our brains and why sleep is important. Again, always with the reminder that our bodies know how to sleep. So we're here because we know that many people with brain injuries suffer from sleep and wakefulness disturbances. And what that means is they have difficulty sleeping at night, and so they have difficulty staying awake in the day. And what we know is that this starts immediately after the brain injury. In fact, there's an increased sleep need right away following brain injury. And that's actually a good thing because sleep is neuroprotective. But in many cases, this does become a chronic problem. So I think you have understood now from the slides I showed previously that sleep is actually pretty complex, and it actually involves many different parts of the brain. And so for this reason, and depending on the location and the extent of the brain injury, there are a number of different types of sleep and wake disturbances which can occur after brain injury. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of those. The other thing is that changes in sleep following brain injury are also related to other factors. So, for many people following their brain injury, their lives change. Maybe they've been able to go back to work, maybe they haven't. Maybe they don't have as much activity in their life. They don't have, maybe they're not able to be as engaged in their daily life as perhaps they were before. And so there's changes in schedules. If we feel like we're not able to fall asleep, maybe we stay up late, so then we sleep in the morning, and this just really sets the whole thing off. Reduced activity levels, maybe because of mobility challenges or pain. We also know that following brain injury, people often experience depression, anxiety, changes in life roles. And of course, many people are taking medication following brain injury, such as antidepressants or seizure medication. And all of these things can impact our sleep. Some of them can impact our sleep in a good way. And we will talk a little bit about that. So we know that not sleeping well can increase or worsen a few things: anxiety, fatigue, and irritability. So it's kind of like a circle. If I feel anxious about not being able to fall asleep, then I will have difficulty sleeping, and then that's going to make me feel more anxious. Fatigue, when we're overtired, we have difficulty sleeping. Irritability, our nervous system is just feeling really unsettled and aroused, and so it's hard to drop into that relaxed state to be able to sleep. We also know that poor sleep or not sleeping well really does have a big impact on our thinking, particularly our attention. It's much harder to pay attention when we're tired. And if we can't pay attention, it impacts our memory, and it also makes us feel foggy. And I wanted to share that I've been there. I've experienced this, and I work with a lot of people, and I've seen them experience it as well. Before we started the webinar, I shared with Kyla and with Irene that I'm a mom of three. One of my I would say my absolute greatest pride and joy in my life. And I had three children in 5 years, and none of them slept well. And so I went through a period of probably 8 years of poor sleep, and it was very difficult to function. So I truly understand And what happened then was I absolutely got into that anxiety of feeling, oh my gosh, I can't sleep. How am I going to manage? And it took me a long time to learn how to deal with that from a mental health perspective. And now I'm so thrilled to be able to say that I'm a good sleeper because I know the things I need to do. The other thing is that sleep challenges really impact our communication. So, in addition to knowing a lot about sleep, I'm also a speech and language therapist, a communication therapist. So, we know that it's really hard to follow conversation, think of words, formulate sentences. Our social communication, we might be more irritable or say the wrong thing when we're not sleeping well, and our overall sense of well being. So I promised that I would talk a little bit about the types of sleep problems after brain injury. And the first one is what we call insomnia. And this is where we have difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep or sleep that does not make you feel rested. So even though you've been in bed, maybe your app or whatever device you may or may not be wearing says, well, I actually got, 5, 6 hours of sleep, but you don't feel rested. So, and that is insomnia. Now, sometimes following a brain injury, people have the complete opposite. They need to sleep a lot. They have excessive daytime sleepiness and extreme drowsiness. Sometimes people have what we call a delayed sleep phase syndrome, where their sleep patterns are mixed up. So we normally sleep in the night, we wake in the day. Most people are like that. There certainly are some people who are night owls. I'm not one of them. I'm someone who I fall asleep around 9:30 or 10 o'clock, particularly in the winter. The darkness just really signals to my body that it's time to sleep. But those mixed up sleep patterns are not uncommon following brain injury. Narcolepsy is less common, but it does occur occasionally, and that is when the person just falls asleep suddenly and uncontrollably during the day. I really don't see that very often, but it's not impossible. So other types of sleep-wake problems, and sometimes people can have more than one, difficulty breathing or sleep apnea. So this is not uncommon following brain injury. It can be related to maybe having a thicker neck, and lots of athletes, such as football players or people that are larger and who have a big neck, may have sleep apnea because when they lie down, literally the weight of their neck and the weight of the neck muscles actually collapses their airway a little bit. But the brain can also signal a sleep apnea as well. So if anyone has any difficulty with breathing while you're sleeping, or you notice that you're suddenly waking up with a little bit of a gasp for air, or you have a sleep partner who comments that you're snoring a lot or notices that, it's very important to have that checked out. Another type of sleep problem is leg movements as you're falling asleep or during sleep. And again, these are things that can be treated. It's very important to know that. One thing that can also cause leg movements during night is low iron levels. So if you are experiencing that, again, it's helpful to have a comprehensive blood work, maybe with a naturopath or your doctor, just to see what your iron levels are, what your vitamin B levels are, etc. Clenching or grinding teeth, that's another type of sleep-wake problem, and I'm one of those. I'm a tooth grinder, and I have a night guard that I wear, which is really helpful. And perhaps people may be experiencing bad dreams or sleepwalking. So again, all of those things are treatable, but it also shows that there are quite a few different types of sleep problems following brain injury. And if you are experiencing them, it is a good idea to speak with your healthcare provider. The other thing I like to talk a little bit about is that the fact that sleep and fatigue are not the same thing. Many people following a brain injury experience fatigue, cognitive fatigue, because their brains are working overtime, physical fatigue. They are related, but they are not the same thing. So as you are probably aware, there are those two types of fatigue, the brain fatigue that we talked about. And I'm aware that after today's talk, you may feel some brain fatigue because I'm giving you a lot of information. So I'm sorry about that. And then physical fatigue. So what we do know is that the fatigue is related to the extra effort by your brain to function. You might be processing more slowly. It's harder to get information in, harder to formulate your ideas, harder to follow things. So your brain has to work a lot harder, and that causes the fatigue. But being sleepy is different. It's an actual physiological process in our brain, and we can actually measure it, but we can't objectively measure fatigue. That's just something that is subjective, and we've all experienced that. So let's go on to talking about the good news now. Now we've talked about what happens with sleep, why it changes after brain injury, what are the different types of sleep problems, but this is really why we're all here tonight. So number one, the first rule, and it seems so simple, it's called sleep hygiene. And this is establishing a daily routine for sleep and wakefulness. And this really does make a difference. So, what this means is pretty simple. Go to bed and get up at the same time each day, even on the weekends if possible. I know it's not always possible, but if this is difficult, try to keep it within a half hour either way. It's so easy to say, oh, I'm not tired, so I'm just going to stay up and watch TV or do whatever. Yes, this really does make a difference because it trains your body to anticipate sleep and anticipate time to wake up. Our bodies are very strong from the perspective of our circadian rhythms. Now, what are some things that we can do in the daytime? Well, first of all, we can use a gentle alarm to try and wake up at the same time every day. I'm not saying put on some obnoxious sound. I really like the Philips light that may, have bird song, and has a gentle light that starts to come on so that you wake up naturally. The light actually stimulates your brain that it's time to wake up. Of course, um, meaningful activities and exercise in your daily schedule. That is so important. For even if you are having mobility challenges, if you get outside and you're out in nature and you're doing something that's meaningful, it makes a huge difference. And we've also discovered this across the lifespan that exercise in elderly people can also really help to keep their sleep patterns strong. Yoga and meditation. You have such a gift in Love Your Brain yoga, and it is so important for sleep, for well-being, for mental well-being, for relaxation. And I remember when I was going through periods where I was having difficulty sleeping. And so I would actually get up because there's no sense just lying in your bed, thrashing around, telling yourself, I have to get up. So I would actually go downstairs and I would do some yoga and some meditation to try and quiet my mind and put my body back in a state where it was prepared to sleep. So all of the breath work, all of the yoga that you do with Love Your Brain is so helpful from the perspective of sleep. The other is really get off the couch and limit TV watching and screen time. Screen time really impacts our sleep because, as many of you are aware, our screens emit blue light, and the blue light stimulates our pineal gland and it signals that it's time to wake up. So if you do need to look at a screen, I suggest you use blue blocker glasses, yellow lenses, and really try to cut your screen time a good hour before bed. Daytime suggestions. So if you're able to get outside, that is absolutely the best. Even if you just go and look out the window on a day where the sky is blue and look right at that sky, that blue light, as I mentioned, stimulates a gland in our brain called the pineal gland that helps us to wake up. So there is actually a device called blue light therapy, which is energy therapy. And this, you can buy one on Amazon. I actually have one. I have the Philip lights. And if you look at that for a half an hour in the morning, you have to have it like kind of directly, in your line of vision, even as you're eating breakfast or whatever. That will really help with daytime wakefulness and nighttime sleep. This is also something that is used to help address seasonal affective disorder as well when we get less light during the winter. So the Philips light in the morning or get outdoors is really really helpful. Things that might also help. So some people do get put on stimulants by their doctor, for example, Adderall, Ritalin, and this is to help with daytime alertness. Now, again, I am not a physician. Some people find it's helpful. Other people find it just makes them run out of gas faster. So it's really important to have a conversation with your doctor if someone is recommending that for you. The other thing that I would recommend is that it may take some time to establish a dosage. So just because you get put on one dosage doesn't mean that that's it, because you may, if you do choose to go on a stimulant, you may find that you crash more easily or you have difficulty falling asleep in the evening. So really keep in close contact with your healthcare provider. The other thing is diet. Really maintain your blood sugar levels. Make sure that you're eating protein throughout the day and good carbs, not processed foods. I know a lot of these things are just really common sense, but they really, our bodies need really good, healthy food. So as much as possible. Napping. This is a really tricky one. So ideally, don't nap more than 30 minutes during the day, because I promise you that if you do, it will disrupt your nighttime sleep. And I have to admit, I rarely nap, but every now and then, if it's a gloomy, cloudy weekend afternoon and I don't have anything on and I've had a super busy week, I do admit I love to kind of curl up in my bed. But I don't let myself stay in bed it has to be under an hour. If it, otherwise I know I'm not going to fall asleep at night. So that's really important. The other is try not to nap after 4 p.m. in the afternoon, because again, that will really impact your sleep. I'm sure that you've all talked about pacing with your healthcare providers, with yourself. You probably all know when you have a peak time in your day. And for many people with a brain injury, that's not 8 o'clock in the morning. It may be 11 o'clock. It may take you some time to get up and kind of wake yourself up and wake your brain up. So if you can, if you have appointments or activities, try to do those that have the most demands on you cognitively during that peak energy time. So if you're involved in therapies or work or care or anything, be protective of yourself. Say, my best time is between 11 and 2, and that's when I need to have my appointments or do the things that I need to do. Things to avoid: caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, and sugar 5 hours before bedtime. I know that's a long time, but if say you go to bed, say you're aiming to go to bed at 10 or 11, that's not so bad. I can tell you I'm someone who is caffeine sensitive. I do enjoy my coffee in the morning. It's one of my life's pleasures. But in the morning, I have 1 or 2 cups of coffee, and that's it for the day. That literally is it. I switch to herbal teas. I love my chamomile tea in the evening, maybe with a little bit of honey or mint tea. Nicotine is a stimulant. Alcohol absolutely messes up our sleep-wake cycle, and sugar, it will give you a spike and then you will crash. So that's really important. It can make a huge difference. Now, it's also important to eat early enough before you go to sleep to allow yourself time to digest. But also, I don't want you to go to bed so hungry that you're waking up from your sleep because you're hungry. Okay, so maybe have a handful of walnuts or a little bit of peanut butter or some warm milk with something in it that will help facilitate sleep. The other thing is exercising within 2 hours of bedtime. Like, don't exercise 2 hours before bedtime, because again, exercise is a stimulant and it wakes us up. But absolutely try to exercise during the day as much as you can. But stretching and or meditation absolutely may help with sleep. And that's something that's become an absolutely critical part of my daily practice. So some nighttime suggestions. As I talked about, try to go to bed at the same time every night. Set your alarm for the next day if you don't wake up automatically, and follow that bedtime routine. So I am actually so committed to my bedtime routine now. My children are older. I actually don't have any kids living at home anymore, which is sad but lovely. They're all close by and we're very close, but I don't have the responsibility of doing nighttime homework and getting little ones into bed. So I start preparing for bed literally after dinner, especially in the winter. I get my clothes out for the morning. I come upstairs. I wash my face. I do a half-hour meditation. I'm going to talk to you about what I use for that. I brush my teeth. I get into my pajamas so that when I go back downstairs and just kind of hang out for a bit with other family members, my body is ready so that when I come upstairs, I roll right into bed. I don't need to go into the bathroom and turn lights on that are going to wake me up. Wherever possible, if you can get into a meditation routine to help quiet your mind, and I use a device called the Muse. So this is a picture of it. You can purchase it online. You can purchase it on Amazon, etc. I've been using the Muse now for about 4 to 5 years, and I probably use it 4 times a week. And it is a device, I think it costs about $400. It's not inexpensive, but it has really made a huge difference for me. And I put it on and I put my earphones in and I have an app, and it monitors my brain waves. It monitors whether my brain is calm or active. It monitors my movement and it monitors my heart rate. I don't pay for any extra fancy subscriptions. I don't need them. It just plays some waves in the background and some sounds. And I drop right into a very deep, relaxed state with the Muse. So I highly recommend that. The other thing I like about it, and other meditations that do not involve speaking. For me personally, I don't want anyone talking to me while I'm listening to a meditation because that's cognitively stimulating. So I prefer nonverbal meditations. I mentioned before, if you do use screens, and you must use screens in the evening, put them in nighttime mode. There's less glare. Switch if you're, on a Word doc or whatever, switch it to night mode so that the background is black with white or yellow writing. And again, consider using blue blocker glasses. So my actual reading glasses right now also have blue blocker in them because I spend a lot of time on my computer. So these are all very concrete things that you can do. So there are a lot of bedtime routine resources. As you know, Love Your Brain Meditation Library has free practices designed for brain injury community. The other is Yoga Nidra or yogic sleep. And I know that there is some Yoga Nidra that's done in some of the Love Your Brain practices. That a Yoga Nidra is a guided meditation practice that leads to a state of deep, deep relaxation between the state of wakefulness and sleep. And it allows the body to rest while the mind remains conscious. So essentially what it does is it puts you into close to that stage one. And what we always say is that if the person actually falls asleep during Yoga Nidra, then that is actually a gift to us as yogis. It's typically done while we're lying down, and it involves following a sequence of instructions that guide you through progressively relaxing the body, the mind, maybe using techniques like a body scan and visualization. And the goal is to achieve a state of deep rest that can reduce stress, improve sleep, and increase your self-awareness. So I strongly encourage you to go into that beautiful Love Your Brain meditation library and practice some of those. So in terms of nighttime suggestions, this is how I envision and what I like to do in my bedroom. See how it's cozy, it's quiet. I have candles lit. I'm a big candle person. Make your bedroom cozy and welcoming. Make sure it's quiet. Make sure it's not too hot or too cold. I have a humidifier in my room during the winter because as soon as the heat comes on, everything gets dry. I like a little bit of a cooler bedroom so that I feel relaxed. Do not have a digital clock beside your bed. That is the one bossy thing I will say. That is so important because what happens, particularly if we have insomnia, we wake up, we turn, we see the blue light of the clock, and it says 3 o'clock in the morning, and instantly that blue light and the cognitive action of saying, oh my gosh, it's 3 o'clock. I have to get up in 3 hours because I have to do this. And our brains literally go into a spin. It doesn't matter what time it is. It doesn't matter. So don't have a digital clock beside your bed. Don't have your phone beside your bed so that the light comes on. If some of you wear a device at night, a wrist device, put it in night mode because if you roll over, it will flash a bright blue light and that will wake you up. So that's my bossy talk. The other, again, I feel very strongly about this. Unless you're in a situation where you live in a place where your bedroom is your office, ideally don't have your computer in your bedroom or a TV, and turn off all your electronic devices an hour before you sleep. Because again, they all emit blue light that wake us up, even the little red light on our computer that shows that it's charged. All of those things stimulate our brain and cause our brains to do some cognitive activity. If there's a lot of light where you live, use dim out or blackout curtains. Use a white noisemaker, anything that you find soothing, whether it's ocean waves. I use a lot of YouTube videos with singing bowls or alpha waves in the background. I actually use those while I'm working at my computer as well, and I find they really help me to focus and be in a calm, relaxed, focused state. So yes, there are supplements that can be helpful. We're coming close to the end. I'm noticing the time here. Magnesium and zinc supplements can really help with sleep. Magnesium is calming, and everybody should be taking magnesium daily. The zinc is also helpful. Taking creatine can also help support cognitive function and cognitive energy, even in cases of sleep deprivation. So the creatine, again, is really important, and you can add a creatine powder to water or a smoothie. I actually take creatine little fruit flavored gummies because I know that I take them more regularly than putting the creatine in my water or smoothie. What happened here? The other thing to think about is your bed is for sleep and intimacy. That's it. Maybe a bit for reading, but I really want you to associate your bed with sleep. And we do. If we go in and our bedroom is also our office, we associate our bedroom with cognitive activity. So ideally, bed is for sleep and intimacy, as I say, maybe curling up with a good book if that's going to help you go to sleep. But otherwise, I try to keep activity out of the bedroom. Keep stress out of the bedroom. Don't work or pay your bills in there. The other thing is if you don't fall asleep in 30 minutes, it's okay. It's okay. Get out of bed, go do something relaxing or boring until you feel sleepy. Because again, you want to associate your bed with sleep. If you do get up to use the bathroom, try not to turn on the overhead light. So use a night light. And again, my bossy talk there, do not look at a clock. It does not matter what time it is. Just get up, use the bathroom, go back to bed. Other strategies that may help. Acupuncture can help with insomnia in some people. Cognitive behavioral therapy, insomnia can also be helpful. And counseling may be helpful if this is affecting your mood, because we know that poor sleep really does. And tips for families and loved ones. If you live with somebody else, if you live with someone who lives with a brain injury, I mean, brain injury happens to the whole family and close others. It's really important that as a loved one, you understand that lack of sleep or lack of restful sleep can be debilitating. We know that most of the time, brain injury is an invisible disability. And poor sleep is also an invisible disability, but if we've experienced it, we know how awful it feels. Just like I suggest to you with lived experience of brain injury, you schedule activities during your peak time, but loved ones also need to think about that. If I need to have an important conversation or we need to go to a doctor's appointment or something, do it at the time when your family member with the brain injury is at their highest energy level. Support regular breaks and healthy living. Take the time to exercise together. Really try to help your family member maintain a regular sleep-wake schedule. If everyone in the house can do that, everyone's sleep will be better. And if you do suspect that your family member has a sleep disorder, encourage them to speak to their healthcare practitioner. Sleep is often something that people don't really talk about. They focus on maybe their memory or headaches, etc. But sleep is really important. So don't hesitate to talk to your care provider. So improving our sleep can improve our overall health. As a society, we need to take sleep seriously. We need to be taught how to have good sleep. And if you do suspect that you have a sleep disorder, most sleep disorders are treatable. So it's really important to have a thorough assessment and diagnosis as you've learned that sleep is complex and there are so many different types of sleep disorders. And they can also be associated with other conditions as well. So for example, like sleep apnea and difficulty breathing. So take it seriously and go talk to your healthcare provider. So we're coming to the end, and my wish for you is that you sleep well. I wish you a beautiful sleep this evening. I wish you to heal well. I wish you rest well. And I thank you so very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for sharing just such a wealth of information and ideas and suggestions. And would love to open it up to the full group to hear any questions or reflections that could help maybe clarify some of the curiosities that this group has. I did notice two questions in the chat that I'll surface here, but then we can open it up to the group. So Naomi was asking, can you use blue light if you are having light sensitivity?
That's a good question. I think you can try it. Try it, absolutely. And if it causes you to have a headache, then don't. But you can also, as I say, when you use the blue light therapy, you have it like slightly off to the side. Hang on, let me admit that person. So absolutely, I know that many people have light sensitivity following a brain injury, but absolutely, I would try it.
Thanks for clarifying that. And then also someone had a question about blue light. Is it the same thing as a SAD lamp?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. Well, would love to hear from the group, and you're welcome to either raise your hand or you're also welcome to come off mute and ask your question.
I noted that someone did say they would prefer to ask their question rather than type it. So I'm happy to answer that. I think that was Lexi. Lexi?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. I'm a seven-time TBI survivor. Love Your Brain is probably very familiar with my involvement. Right now, which is something that you haven't touched upon, I have a lot of PTSD from all of my concussions, and traumatic brain injuries are you can't have a cast on your head, basically. We're walking around, people look at you, they judge you, and then we feel like we're broken. And there's no, I might get emotional about it, and I'm sorry.
Hey, this is a safe place.
There's everybody who's had a traumatic brain injury understands that. And lately, since the fall, December, I wake up with nightmares from all the trauma I've been through and all of the feelings of feeling like you're not a human, you're a dog. And I'm a healthcare worker too, so it's kind of there's a lot going on with me, and I just want to know what you recommend with handling the PTSD and the nightmares at night when you're just laying in bed next to your husband and you're worried about your child and everything else, and you just feel paranoid and scared, and there's nobody there besides your faith to help you. And your husband's waking you up going, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, what just happened? It's like deja vu all over again.
So first of all, I'm so sorry to hear that you're experiencing these challenges. And thank you for sharing that. This is a safe space, and I'm sure that there are others here who have similar experiences. So I will start off by saying that I'm aware of in the veteran population, there are many veterans with blast brain injuries and brain injuries and who also have severe PTSD. And there is a medication that has been found to be very helpful. And what I will do is I will send that information offline to Kyla, and perhaps she can share that with you because I don't have it at the just at the tip of my fingers. But I have worked with a wonderful sleep clinician who works specifically with veterans, and she's done a lot of work in that particular area. It may well be, yeah, I see ibogaine. Yes, I think it is ibogaine. But I will definitely check on that.
Yeah, mine is more sport related, and there's no easy way to say it. People doing silly things, to put it nicely.
Okay. So
silly accidents, in a sense.
Okay, so I would also look into things like EMDR. I think it's very important that you work with a therapist. That is, it's beyond my area of expertise, but I would absolutely, if you have access to a healthcare provider.
I have a good team. My team is absolutely fantastic, but I
Okay.
like hearing other people's
Okay, EMDR is very, very helpful. The Muse may or may not be helpful, etc. And this may also be something where pharmacological intervention may be helpful as well.
Genetic testing does help. Let me just put it that way.
Okay. Okay. Good. I'm glad to yes, transcranial magnetic therapy possibly could help. Acupuncture, neurofeedback is really helpful. I see a number of people who are putting EMDR in the chat. There is a very wonderful organization that I will just share just in case people this is helpful information. It's called Eve, and this is End Violence Everywhere. And Eve supports survivors of intimate partner and gender-based violence, just in case that is helpful to, yes, EMDR can trigger things. Absolutely. I'm aware of that as well. But Eve also provides therapy and EMDR for survivors of intimate partner violence. So if that applies to you in any way, that's an organization that you may want to reach out to. It's all it's all free. Uh, Art therapy, music therapy, all of those things can be extremely helpful for processing some of the things. Yes, melatonin can absolutely be helpful. The only thing people need to understand about melatonin is that it's not a sleeping pill. It is our bodies release melatonin, and it's actually released by that pineal gland. So every time you have blue light shining, your melatonin levels drop in your body. The other thing is that some people following brain injury actually have lower melatonin levels. So melatonin is neuroprotective. It can be very helpful. It can be even more helpful when it's used in combination with blue light therapy in the morning and melatonin at night. There's different I'm trying to think of the word. See, I'm starting to get that cognitive fatigue and word finding. There's different degrees of good melatonin out there. And again, I can't I can't recommend one over the other, but there is a sleep physician in Toronto who actually prepares his own melatonin. And I've seen the difference in some of the people I work with when they're on his melatonin versus regular melatonin, and there's a big difference. Nocturia, like as in nighttime urination. Is that, David, is that what you're speaking about? Someone, if somebody wanted to put in the chat, I'm happy to try and address the question.
And there's also, I see a few other
Okay.
hands. So why
Oh,
don't
yeah,
we,
please go ahead.
Melody?
Sorry.
Okay, I'll
Trying to
also open it
navigate
up
the
to
chat.
Melody since I saw your hand.
Okay.
And we probably, in the interest of time, just have about two more questions. So Melody, let's see if you're there.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'd like to point out that melatonin is not good to be using on a long-term basis because if you start using the supplement, your body stops producing it. Also, melatonin has been associated with Alzheimer's disease, which is more common in people with brain injury. But my question is sleepwalking part of the brain injury? Because this is partly why I wake up, is that I actually look like I'm trying to get out of bed, which in my case is unusual because I have a physical disability that limits me now from walking, but I used to walk as a kid without crutches. So is that natural? Is that part of the brain injury? What do you think?
So I think that's something you really need to see your healthcare provider about. Okay, so sleepwalking following brain injury, it's not that common, and it is important that you see your healthcare provider and get referred to a neurologist. about that, okay? Because there's certainly the risk of injury. Um, because we don't want you to actually fall out of bed or try to get up. So I absolutely would go and see your doctor about that.
And
Okay. Well, honestly, I usually handle this on my own. My physician is of no help.
I'm
They
sorry.
constantly want to do medications,
I
which
know.
is not good for me because I'm already allergic to a lot of medication. Because when they diagnosed me with restless leg, the medicine they gave me I was allergic to.
Okay. Did they give
So,
you gabapentin for the restless leg?
pardon me?
Did they give you something called gabapentin for the restless leg?
No.
Okay. Okay. So with the restless leg, as I mentioned, one thing that you can check are your iron levels. So that might be something. But I do hear you. I know many people are very medication sensitive and more so following their brain injury. I do know that. And ultimately, you have to do what's right for you. You have agency over your own body and your decision making. So if you don't want to take a medication, don't take it.
I apologize. My thing is telling me I've got low battery on my backup, but
That's okay.
I can tell you that magnesium, that's part of the reason I use magnesium because that's one thing that helps to control my restless leg. It's
Good.
just that I have trouble deciding whether it's my restless leg or whether it's my spasticity from cerebral palsy. So
Right.
that's why I don't want to run and do medication.
Right. No, I understand that. I do understand that. Yeah.
No.
As long as it's not interfering with your safety in bed, that would be my only concern.
No, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Not.
You don't have to, whenever you're done.
all right. I think we have time for one last question. Dave, have you been waiting here?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Um. So I was wondering about a medicine called Trazodone.
Yes.
Um.
So, yes, trazodone is an antipsychotic medication that is sometimes given to support sleep. Um, that is a conversation that I would suggest you have with your physician. It sometimes helps. It's not something that you would necessarily want to be using on a long-term basis. But sometimes pharmacological intervention can kind of kickstart or at least give you a couple of nights of sleep so that you at least feel a little bit of rest. Um, people have had mixed results with trazodone. Some people find it helpful, other people don't. It can also cause um, um, cognitive, it has some cognitive side effects. And so I think that is something that I would discuss with your healthcare provider. I would also where if you have the option to, I know not everyone has the option to work with a naturopath. I know these things cost money, but if you have, I would talk to a naturopathic doctor as well. So yes,
I
I certainly am
was.
familiar with trazodone. It may or may not be helpful. I wouldn't want to see you using it on the over the long term.
What about cannabis edible?
So again, that's a great question. Under the supervision of a healthcare practitioner, um, a lot of people do find relief with cannabis. Ideally, you would be CBD and not THC. I use a honey that has a little bit of CBD hemp in it, and I'll have like a little teaspoon of that sometimes if I am feeling like I know that I'm not going to sleep very well. I think we're really just starting to learn about the benefits of certain substances, whether it's cannabis or other substances, to help cope with brain injury or recover from brain injury. I don't feel that I have the knowledge and expertise to advise you on that. But if it helps you, like, then use what helps you.
Well, I will share just a huge amount of appreciation, Catherine, because you have shared such a wealth of potential pathways to supporting sleep, which this group well knows is complex and impacted by so many different factors. And just hope that in the maybe waterfall of information, the invitation is just to take one thing away to play with and weave into maybe your night tonight or your day tomorrow and see how that works for you. So I know can sometimes after these workshops feel like, oh, there was so much information, I don't know where to start. So my invitation is to find one thing and start from there. And truly, thank you, Catherine, for being here and sharing your expertise, but also your deep care. And also to this community who continues to show up with the intention to learn. There's so much goodness there, especially I know how frustrating it is when there's not an answer. So just hope you can trust that that pursuit of inquiry and curiosity will continue to serve you in the never-ending healing journey. So with that, please know we'll send the recording out. So you'll have this as an ongoing learning resource and hope that there can be moments of rest that you can receive as we transition away from this workshop into the rest of your day, whatever time that looks like. And know that we're here. And if people have follow-up questions, reach out to Love Your Brain and we can connect you with the right resources.
So I would also just like to add, for those of you where it is nighttime, I realize that people are coming from all over, and I'm so honored that you're here. But for those of you where it is late afternoon, getting into the evening, go put your PJs on, your coziest sweats, get a cuddly blanket, maybe light a candle, turn the lights down low, and just embrace a feeling of rest.
Thank you, Catherine. All right, embrace a feeling of rest with those words. We will end for now, and I'm sure see you all soon. All right, bye. Thanks, everyone.